Welcome back to Talking Points. In this week's SCOTUS Focus, the Supreme Court has agreed to hear a case regarding a New York City gun ordinance. It'll be the court's first review of a Second Amendment case in almost a decade and the most significant look since the landmark D.C. versus Heller decision in 2008. Here to tell us about this law and what's under review and what might happen when the court hears the case is Talking Points analyst Brandon Ross. So, let's talk about this. What exactly are they reviewing right now?
Well, it's possibly one of the most niche gun ordinances in the entire country because it specifically focuses on New York City. Basically, there are 7 licensed gun ranges if you're a licensed gun owner in city boundaries that you could take your gun to and practice shooting. If you want to shoot outside of the city boundaries, say Westchester County, more upstate, or even in New Jersey or Connecticut, you're going to have another gun in another state or another county in New York State. You cannot take that gun outside of the city premises, even if it is unloaded, even if it is locked away and properly stored. You cannot take it out of that city boundaries. It's very niche.
Elijah, like you were saying, this is the first time in a decade we're seeing the Supreme Court take up a Second Amendment case. It's a topic they like to leave it up to the lower courts, so why are they taking on this case now?
I think a big reason why is because Justice Brett Kavanaugh is now sitting in an associate justice seat on the Supreme Court. Now, it's not to say that Anthony Kennedy wouldn't have done this. He was a vote in favor of the majority in the D.C. versus Heller case, which gave what most people agree to be the definition of what gun rights are in the United States today. But Brett Kavanaugh has definitely swayed the court to be a little bit more conservative now, 5 more reliably conservative votes on the Supreme Court. And so that's probably why, considering you only need 4 votes to agree to hear a case at the Supreme Court level, that it will probably be heard up in Washington.
And with this new court, what's it looking like for this ordinance? Is this ordinance going to stay, or are we going to see the Supreme Court make a major ruling on gun rights?
It seems likely, I'm going to say probable, that this ordinance gets overturned, but I'm not going to set it in stone just because Justice John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, he's very much an establishment figure. He really doesn't like to wade into the very controversial issues when they reach the court. He tends to let them stay on their own, and this would be a very drastic measure should the court take it up. And knowing Justice Roberts, he could put a little bit of a wiggle room in there, but it's definitely probable in my mind, at least more likely than not, that they're going to overturn this ordinance.
And you said Kavanaugh is a big part in why the court is taking on the case. Looking ahead to next term when they'll be hearing the argument, what role do you expect Kavanaugh to play? Well,
when this case gets heard in the fall, it's going to be decided on probably in 2020. It will probably play somewhat of an impact on the final outcome because, as I mentioned, Anthony Kennedy, the justice that Brett Kavanaugh replaced, was a little bit less conservative, more libertarian leaning, and he was a little bit skeptical with some cases that a lot of the other conservative judges tended to vote in unison on. But that being said, Kennedy was still a generally reliable conservative vote. He did vote in the majority on that D.C. versus Heller decision, and it is more within possibility that it is definitely within the range of possibility that Kavanaugh being on the court does change the outcome.
Like you said, probably have to wait till 2020 for a decision.